Hi, everybody. This is Chris,
This is Matt.
and this is Darklands. And this is not a review. We don't do reviews here.
Yep. I always joke that our resistance to doing reviews is because we don't want to be accountable, but that's only like partially true because it's the experience, and there's so much more than the objective goodness or badness of the game elements.
And I think this game would have really showed that. Like, if we did a review for this game, I probably would have tore it apart. And it wouldn't have looked very good in a review. But my experience with it was very different from what I would have wrote.
Right. And the thing with with what we've done, like, we're coming into a lot of these games cold, or we're coming into a lot of these games with a large amount of nostalgia, and you never know where to hold it up in the pantheon of games. So I feel like just this format is gonna work for this better.
I feel like a review for us, if we say what we do is a review, diminishes reviews and also diminishes what we do by trying to lump it into something else, because this is far more what a user would sit down and get today.
Yeah,
and just
exactly
like an emotional hangout with friends and talk about it. And it lets us go off the track, and I don't have to feel guilty about it, which goes back to that accountability, which again is part of it.
definitely part of it, a large part of it.
Yes. So it's not a review, but it is two assholes with opinions talking about a game they played for a month. In this case, 2 months.
Right, 2 months in a week. We had a bye last week where there was like no Deathlord stream and no recording, and I was really confused with what to do with myself those days. I talked to my child again.
Oh,
that was interesting. I didn't even know. I forgot he was down there.
Yeah. It's just scavenging for himself. Just
go
around eating food. Mostly potato chips and frozen pizzas, I presume. That's what I ate at that age.
Yeah, that's pretty much what he does. A lot of ramen, an alarming amount of ramen. I think he's more sodium than human at this point.
Oh my god. I didn't get into ramen until college, and then I had to. And then, like, little fact about Chris can't be bothered to cook ramen. That takes too long. I just sprinkle the seasoning pack on and eat it like a rice cake.
That is so gross. Really? Do you still do that to this day? I still do that.
Like, why bother? Like, I'm getting the flavor, I'm getting the thing, adding water to it. I'll just drink water if I want water. And I do not.
That's the way you can live. I mean, people do that shit at office potlucks and call it a noodle salad, and everyone acts like it's okay. So,
it's edible.
You're just more honest, I guess.
Right. Why bother?
So this came out in 1992.
Oh, Matt's changing the subject. All right, fine. We'll go. Yeah. We'll talk about the game. The reason we're here.
We got to get on track because
got a lot to talk about.
Yeah, there's a lot to this thing.
Yeah.
It's 1992 Microprose.
Mm-hmm.
Arnold Hendrick, who was kind of this was like his game. He died just a few weeks ago. So
I know timing.
It's really sad. Like, I was really surprised to see Darklands pop up in my highly curated news stream. Mm-hmm. Like, Google knows I've been searching Darklands a lot, so it's like, hey, this happened. That was a bummer, because even whether you love Darklands or hate Darklands, you have to accept that there was so much thought and work and detail in the systems of this game, that it's really amazing for a 1992 game how much depth there is and complexity to the systems in this thing.
Well, and the attempt at, like, it's not historical accuracy because there's supernatural creatures. But the location and the vibe and the feel, like creating a historically accurate atmosphere, if that makes sense.
Right. That's kind of one of the main deals with this game, is that it purports to be historically accurate, which, like you said, it tries, like,
right.
And there's some flimsy justification in there that people believed in, like, giant monsters and stuff. and like you can't really make an RPG without some kind of magic system. So there's the whole saint system in this game, which I'm sure we'll talk about. So
Yeah.
overall, I would say that the historical accuracy to me was more of a barrier to gameplay than it was rewarding.
The historical accuracy very much felt to me like the Asian influence in Deathlord. Sort of painted on, and if you had taken it off, it would have been exactly the same game.
See, I feel like it's in the game's DNA more than it is in Deathlord, because Deathlord, it definitely feels tacked on. This, it feels like it was when it was made, they set out with that goal and then refused to give a little on it, and so you end up with some kind of annoying game elements.
But I mean, the fact that they call it like a market plots instead of just you go to the store, like
Right.
that, it adds flavor, but it doesn't change the fundamental. Like you could say, market or store or blacksmith or any one of those things, and it would have worked just the same.
Yeah, I mean, there's some of them. Some of it I like when you go to the pharmacist and it describes kind of in detail that he puts leeches on you and stuff. I kind of got a kick out of that. Like those are the times that it really works and it feels like right for the time, and it doesn't really heal you that much,
Right?
which is probably quite historically accurate.
Yeah. And that's fine. That's a nice, little bit of flavor. But if I had said you go to the cleric and you heal, get a cure light wounds spell, or, they bandage you, or, any one of the other RPG tropes, the game would play the same. It's a fun read. It's flavor, but it didn't change the mechanics of the game in any way. It's just an overcoat of paint.
Yeah. And at first I was put off by like the first thing that put me off about it was the money system, because it's like you've got your groshens, your pfennings, pfennages as I call them, and
Yes.
your what's the other one, florins. But it does you a favor, and it expresses everything in parentheses and florins, so that's not too bad. Like that I got used to. I could just look at the value in the parentheses, and I don't have to do like the mental math to convert my groshens to pfennings or whatever. But what really drove me fucking nuts is the time system, because I want to get to churches, masses at Prime and Vespers, and I don't know. There's a really nice chart in the really nice manual, but I am not going to go look that thing up every time. Like I want to go to the prime mass, and so it turns into this like, well, what time is it now? It's prime and vespers are the only two times I remember, because I was always trying to get them. But it's like, okay, so, and it's not like hours either. It's like sections of day. So that part was really frustrating to me, because man, I want to go to mass. Because you got to go to mass.
And there's part of me that's frustrated with old me on this, because young me would have been like, I've learned something. I mean, maybe it's not a useful something, but I feel a little more historically learned from learning these things about it. But now it's just like, okay, I've looked at game mechanics so long and so much that I just see it as paint. And I'm like, I wish you had done more with something. Like, it just, I don't know what, but I've just
Totally. And like a good example is this character creation. Like, it's cool that it tells you kind of the castes of the society, and like the kinds of families that there were, and like the backgrounds you can have and how they might translate into like what a person is like.
Right.
So like from that standpoint, I think it's a huge success. And I think a lot of the historic stuff was quite successful, but a lot of it, like you said, was paint and obfuscation of information that I kind of need to get through the game. And if you're a better person than me, you'll memorize that translation and you'll figure out how long things take and how to get to mass on time. I could never nail that fucking Vespers mass. Like,
well,
I wanted to.
Here's this is going to bring up the point that we were eventually going to get to. You would have, if you had played this as long as it takes. Because I'm presuming you did not finish the game.
No.
No.
I don't think anyone's ever finished Darklands.
Oh yeah, I've seen a couple reports of people. Yeah,
it's a long haul.
It is a long haul, and there's a lot of reasons for that, and we are going to get into them. But this is the kind of game where I would play it for if when I first got it, I'd probably play it heavy duty for about a month and a half, which is about how long I played it, and then I'd have to set it down and come back to it in a couple months and play probably for a week, 2 weeks till I kind of peter out on it, and do that over and over again for a long time.
Right, because it's a grind, and then you get through the grind, and then you grind some more, and it's a series of grinds with some crests in that wave, but then it retreats, and you're back into another grind of some kind.
Right. And the game almost lost me right away because of this sort of thing that it does, where it doesn't get you it doesn't give you the story. It's not like, here's what you need to do, go do it. It's literally, the goal is become rich and famous. I don't give a shit. You know what I mean? Like, that is possibly the worst goal you could hand me in a video game. Like, just gather points. Like, just go gather points. If I want a gather points game, I'll do a Pac-Man or I'll do an arcadey thing. I don't want to spend 8 months gathering points. So if you don't hint at something immediately that there's something I should be looking for, I do not care. And what happens is you spend a little bit of time getting past the don't care till you find something, and you follow that thread, and then it kind of peters out a little bit, and then you follow a thread, and then it peters out a little bit, and there's just this, like, you gotta sometimes just wander around and trip over the next part of the plot.
Yeah, like, I don't think you can play this without thinking about the Mountain Blade games. But what Mountain Blade does so much better than this, and granted, there's
20 years.
20 years of difference between this and Mountain Blade. But what's nice about Mountain Blade is it similarly dumps you into the world without much guidance, without any plot. Bannerlord's a little different.
I was going to say, really. You'll notice one of the first things they fixed in Bannerlord, the second one, is here's a starting plot, so you're not just dumped in an empty world and told figure it out.
This is a whole nother discussion, but I hate that plot in Bannerlord. It drives me nuts. It irritates me. I know why they did it, but I hate it.
I think what they're probably going to do I don't know that there would have been the space to do it in a game like this. See, I like it. It gives me a direction. It's also a direction that I can literally just throw away and do my own thing. To me, that is the perfect plot, because here's something that's very important to the world. You have the ability to do something with it. And if you do something with it, you can change things. Or change things your own way. There's not some end doomsday clock ticking down on you.
Well, until it's bugged right now.
It's bugged right now.
I think ultimately you're going to be right. But anyway, let's talk about Darklands. Because I was like, I'm not going to talk about it now. And 15 minutes later, we're done with our Bannerlord discussion.
Well, we're allowed to go off the topic.
Yeah, that's true. But But what I was saying is, what those games give you is a host of options for what you can do, and there's some hints of that in here. Like you could become a wealthy potion merchant, kind of, in this game, but it's not quite as telegraphed. Like obviously, the point of this game is to fight, fight the bad guys, get famous, amass
Right.
money, and not die.
But like, let's say you became a wealthy potion merchant in this game.
Then what?
Right.
What do
Who
you do with
cares?
all your wealth? Right.
Who cares? You've become a wealthy potion merchant. Let's say you went out and became a bandit. So what? Like that's just I constantly had this feeling of so what?
Yeah,
And
like
when
you're
I
not gonna
found
set up shop.
something, I'm like, ooh. Did you ever successfully at one of the towns root out like pagan Satanists?
No, I saw that option in the towns where you can accuse them of being pagan Satanists, which I love. But I didn't know there was a subplot where you could actually find pagan Satanists.
So for me, it was when you go to one of these little villages outside the main town, you will like you can go to mass there and you can give some money and you can kind of talk to some of the people, and they will occasionally like do the wrong prayers and just order you to do things for penance that are not kosher, and you'll recognize like, hey, that ain't right. And so you go to the leader and you're like, hey, what's up with your satanic priest over here? And then the town attacks you and you fight, and if you beat them, you'll find their shrine somewhere nearby, and you're offered a couple options on how to cleanse it. And then if you successfully do that, there's a hint that if you can find something over here by this date, something else will happen. And so, like, you start finding out that the church and the church is the plot. That there's this sort of pagan-y Satan versus, and if you're pagan, please don't tell me I don't know the difference between paganism and Satanism. The game has paganism and Satanism as the same thing. It's Holy Roman Empire, feeling of Germany. That's where we're at.
That's
so
how they roll.
That's how they roll. So their pagan satanic cult says the next meeting is over here after you've cleansed the shrine in one of multiple ways, all of them fun to do. Like you can destroy the altar, you can summon the demon and fight him directly, you can undo it with alchemy, you can pray over it. Depending on what your strengths are, you can try and cleanse this altar multiple ways with multiple effects. But then they're like, a big happening's happening over here. They've always put it too far away for me to get there. So I'm like, okay, I got to figure out how to get faster horses, or I got to
Back to the grind.
Find another shrine that's doing something that I can be closer to when the thing's happening, because it's happening at a location, at a date, haul ass, and I just never quite get there in time. So I've never been able to unlock that next step.
Yeah, but that's like a perfect example of the good and the bad things about this game.
Yeah.
That's an incredibly rich and deep game element that is not telegraphed, that you stumble on and you feel like you're accomplishing something and you feel like you're involved and detecting. But when I was listening to you describe that story, I reflected on two things. One I talked about, which is that it's a series of grinds. It's like a hint and then back to a grind. But the second thing is the interface for moving around the towns is that choose your own adventure. And if you don't read those things, which I often don't read them,
then you're not going to be
thoroughly,
able to play this game. So,
because you're not right. You're going to miss things. And it is so pervasive in this game, that choose your own adventure style. And it's not really, you don't know at first how your choices are going to translate into action in the game. Like the perfect example is the first time you fight the robber knight, they give you a bunch of options on how to handle that. Like you can set up camp, or you can infiltrate the tower, or you can charm
And
him.
all
or
of them
whatever.
change how it goes down.
And they all affect what happens, and there is no insight given to the player what that means. Like you can figure out, okay, well, this is going to be a fight. This is going to be whatever. But you don't really know. And you could say that that's a good thing because you don't always know.
No.
The results of your choice. But as a player, I kind of need to know, okay, does that mean I'm going to have a combat outside? Does that mean I'm going to have the dungeony interface that I have to slog through, or what does it mean? And what's the different outcomes? And it's not good at telling you that. And it's that text system is so cumbersome most of the time in town, because in town different stuff doesn't really happen.
Well,
like it's the same every time.
And this is one of my frustrations about writing notes for this and talking about this is I'm going to say a lot of things that sound like I'm talking out both sides of my mouth. I just described a very robust adventure that happened in a little pagan town. But you'll also hear what I said when I said, then you got to go find another one that does the same thing. And you got to find another one that does the same thing. And it starts to all just blend together. And maybe half your time is spent in a graphical part of the game, but the other, at least over half your time, is spent reading and picking choose your own adventure things. That can be good. That is a valid style of gameplay and can be very interesting if you use the ability that you're running text to diversify what's happening more. When there's so much of it and it all sort of is the same, you're missing the main benefit of a text game. Like,
right? It's not flavorful. It's not flexible.
Graphics take memory. Text takes less. If you're doing 90% of your game in text, I expect more diversity in the text. I do.
Yeah, right. And again,
but in the next breath, I cleaned out a pagan cult by killing a demon I brought out of a stone slab. That was awesome.
Right. Yeah, that's totally rad. Yeah, there's no bad part about that. But yeah, I don't know. Like another good example is when you go to the. Is your video locked up here?
No, is yours?
Oh no! You're sitting on the Ben Cheese screen here. I don't see anything happening.
Yeah, I think this. There we go.
There we go. Okay. You go to the pharmacist, and like you have to engage in a dialogue tree kind of to get him to agree to heal you, and then you have to heal, and it's really clicky and obtuse and not. It like that part of the game is not particularly fun or satisfying, and it's a large part of the game.
Interesting the first time, tolerable the second time, the sixth time I'm done. I'm done. I'm just done with it.
It's not simple. It's a tree. Like so, if you know that you want to go to like the alchemist district, that's like 4 different places you have to go. And yeah, you can tell what's going to get you there probably, but it's still annoying.
Yeah.
And furthermore, it's overlaid on the also obtuse time system.
I was about to say that.
So that's why you can never get to mass. Like there's a pattern that you could do that you could figure out that will get you to mass, but then you just have to know it. And then you just be clicking through it by rote.
I've done my mass trips, and I've gotten the hang of when I got to be where for mass, and you start to learn it in a city. And that's one of the things that I go back to talking about. Like if I played this the old ways, where let's say you and I were in 1992, we each had 10 games. We've beaten 6 of them already. I can see you and I like hanging out, going back and forth on this. Like we'll play for a couple weeks. Like, yeah, I feel like Darklands again. Yeah, me too. Let's see if we can figure something out. And over the year of us playing this, we'll know how to get to mass.
Oh, definitely.
We'll know our florins and our Flotsgraphs and our price fisters, and we'll get it all down.
Yeah.
We'll know our Mortis and our Verdus and our Vespers and our all that.
Yeah.
And we'll feel smarter for doing it.
Sure.
I was trying to get my daughter to play Zork. I still am trying to get my daughter. I shouldn't say past tense. It's going to happen. It's going to happen. But I'm telling you, like, here's a blank journal for you to write all your notes in. I don't think you're going to find any YouTube videos on Zork on how to play it. But I don't want you to look up anything online. I want you to try and solve this. She's like, well, how do I learn about words that I don't know? I'm like, well, I'm going to get you a dictionary because that's a good question. We'll get you. And I talked about when I played games in 1992, I had an unabridged dictionary I called Bertha. It was about 10 inches thick, and it had an anatomy encyclopedia on the back and a Greek mythology encyclopedia and a bunch of other astronomy and astrology and all of that. And that was my Wikipedia.
Yeah.
Like that's, I kind of took pride in learning about stuff like that. And now I kind of expect games to maybe teach me. And so putting my head back in this mind space it's a tough sell, unfortunately,
Yeah. One thing like that constantly amazes me is how many different weapons there were in these games. Like every time I think I know my cudgels from my shillelaghs, there's some like variant that someone trots out in one of these games, and I was like, okay, I guess I'll go look up what that thing is. So there's some of that in this too, but I do miss that. I do kind of miss that self-starter. Like you got to figure out what this stuff is.
Yeah.
We're not going to tell you.
Well, and if you have an interest in this stuff, it's easy to do. If you don't, it's not.
Yeah, it feels like work.
It feels like work. And that's always like let me look up the name of it while we talk about this, but like there's a game called TIS 100, TIS 100, and it's the game is coding and assembly. Like that's the game. It's coding and assembly. There's a little visual representation to it, but it is coding and assembly. You've got 10 commands to make a computer do certain things, then it unlocks story as you go. For some people, that's fun. I think for a lot of people, that's work.
Right.
Like,
yep.
There's no sales pitch in the world. Some of you went, I'm getting that game, and most of you went, never in a million years. Like,
Totally. Yeah, they say that every game is for someone, and I think Darklands is definitely for quite a few people. Like I think there's a lot of people, and I've kind of encountered this over the past 2 months while I've just been reading about it and watching people play it. There's a lot of people that this game is for. People who like a grind. I'd say it's a good streaming game because it's dynamic. There's a lot of depth. Like you could do we were watching someone stream this like a week ago, and it was fun. It was good. It was probably more fun to watch someone play it and kind of participate than it is to actually play it.
Well, I don't know about that. I do. I mean, this game is for me. That's one of the things. Normally we start this out, and at 30 minutes in, I guess that's your answer. Would you recommend this game? It sounds like no to you.
I think I would.
Okay.
I would recommend that people try this game because it's got so much depth. There's so much going on. If you can get past the opaque game systems and like get like if you can get through that character creation without getting pissed off, then definitely play the game. If you get flummoxed by that and hate it, I'd say you're not gonna have an easy time with it.
Normally, I don't plug our own videos, but if you want to try this, go watch our other video. It's not going to spoil anything major. Definitely not going to spoil anything more than we spoil in this video. But it will get you off the ground. It will get you playing. And then from there, you can learn your own things and take your own progress and discover things that go up and down it and get a hang of it yourself. But go into it knowing that it's a marathon, not a sprint.
Right. There's nothing short about this game and its scope because the map is huge. This really impressed me. The map is huge. Your relationship is with the town varies for every town you go to, which is both really cool and kind of annoying.
But you do have a regional fame as well, so it's both.
Right.
Kind of compounding. If you're famous in a city, you might not be anywhere else, but as that builds up.
Yeah. So like there's a lot to do and if you can manage the pace of the combat and get a feel for what fights are good to do and what aren't and where you should be going when you can it's satisfying. Like there's something really satisfying about it.
The combat's one of those things, too, that when I first started it, it felt... And this is where if I was writing a review of this combat, I would say it's not action-y enough to satisfy my twitchiness, and it's not strategic enough to satisfy my strategy elements. But it's just enough of both that it's okay. And, as you get better, things are kind of cool. I haven't found anything, I feel like I've gotten to the best equipment I can get for my characters right now. So that's sort of frustrating to hit this wall of, okay, well, now I can't. I'm gaining money, but I'm geared up. So,
right.
What's this for? But one of the things I will say is if you're the type of person who misses, if you don't just miss the games, but you miss the whole experience, get the box for this.
You got to get the box.
Such a great moment of opening it up, seeing just a stack of 3.5-inch discs, this giant thick book, this huge fold-out map that, high school me would have just taped that to a wall and lived there.
Sure.
And I really struggle with the split. Like you were talking... was it the last game where you were like, once I got over... Wolfenstein. Once I got over my completionist and just played like a kid again, I had fun.
Right.
If you can play this like a kid again, if you can take the pressure we put on ourselves to get these off, I think you'll have a lot more fun than we did.
Yeah, there's something satisfying about the town coming to love you and getting more dialogue options and finding out the quests. That's a great feeling, and you get it from this. Like like I said, there are these like valleys and troughs of action and development. But if you've got all the time in the world, like that can be fun because then you can ride those and kind of like pace yourself, and hit once you started a trough and work your way up and then quit and then play again in a week. Like that's a good way to enjoy Darklands.
Take a step back when you're feeling like, I'm starting to burn out. I'm going to play something else for a little while and come back to this. And just keep doing that until you get through it all. I'm sure I will actually probably come back and do a couple more because I want to find out what's happening after that pagan thing. Like, I think I want to find out, okay, I just killed the Satan demon. What's the big thing? What's happening? What's happening over there?
Let's talk about the combat interface some more because there's like what are there like kind of 3 or 4 main interfaces to this game. There's the
The choose your own adventure.
Choose your own adventure. There's combat. There's the overland map, and then there's the dungeon, which is kind of the same as combat, but different. There's some distinct differences.
Yeah.
So we already talked about the choose your own adventure and kind of agreed that it was more of a pain in the ass.
Yeah.
So let's talk about the combat interface.
Well, before we do, I just want to kind of mention, like, one of the things that should be sort of asterisk on this choose your own adventure thing, for as big as this game is, and people are going to be like, well, for the time, this was such and such. Ultima 7 came out the same year. Ultima 7 was huge. I mean, granted, it wasn't all of Germany huge, but it was huge. Let me just take a quick peek at something here. And so, like, that was a graphical thing. I was going to say, when did Daggerfall came out? That was 1996. But we were on the edge of these sort of starting to be large, huge graphical worlds. And I don't know.
The other thing I will say, though, about the Choose Your Own Adventure interface, it's really well written.
Yes.
The writing in this game is great, and the writing in the manual was good, too.
And that's sort of why I feel like that it didn't get more. Like, it was just a collection of the same things over and over.
Yeah.
But maybe I didn't get deep enough in. Maybe, maybe this is on me that it is. But if that's the case, see the first statement I said about you gave me nothing to go on. You gave me no hope that there was anything beyond get rich and famous, and expected that to be enough for me to be interested.
Yeah.
Getting rich and famous in a fictional medieval Germany, I don't know, I guess.
Yeah.
Something to do.
Yeah. Right. Something to do.
Something to do. Okay, sorry. Combat interface.
Combat interface at first drove me fucking nuts, and I hated it more than anything. I really, really hated that combat system when I first started using it, because it's a mix of real time and strategic. It's so pixely that it's really hard to understand what's going on when it's a big brawl. It's chunky. It moves really slow. It doesn't give you much information. Like there's times where I'll be unable to walk somewhere or unable to shoot a guy with an arrow, and it doesn't tell you why you can't. It's just like, no, you can't. And like sometimes you can figure it out, like, oh, it must be this is in the way. Sometimes it just doesn't really make sense. So it's really off-putting, I think, at first. And it doesn't get better, but I think your understanding of it, or maybe my acceptance of it as a interface, improved, because by the end I was like feeling a little better about it, and knowing, just always remembering, okay, I can pause this and like I can noodle out what's happening. And so
I'm glad you went first, because there were a couple times when we were going through this couple months where you're just like, oh, we're talking about combat. And I'm like, oh, he's pissed about combat. And I don't get why. I mean, it's not great, but I can tell, angry about it.
I was super angry about it at first. I really hated it, because there's nothing more frustrating to me than getting an X and not knowing why, and wanting to execute some combat maneuver that I've conceptualized in my head, and I can't because my path is blocked because there's a well there, but it looks like you can get by, but you just can't. And like, you kind of learn those things and learn to accept it. And then it gets to be kind of fun after a while. I had good experiences with the combat.
I learned to start having like semi-strategies, like pull them into pinch points and have people come in and flank, and that obviously attacking from behind was making a difference on some things. Make sure my weak guy went in last so that everybody else had engaged, and then the weak guy comes in and pokes with the staff a couple times. Like, I came up with some strategies. What I absolutely hated in terms of combat, wasn't part of combat, but it's part of the inventory interface. I didn't know I didn't have anything equipped the first like 5 battles.
Mm-hmm.
I bought all this stuff and was getting my ass handed to me. And it's because I didn't know how to put any of it on.
Yeah, this is a function of it being a game from 1992, but the interface in general is not responsive, and it doesn't, like when you share equipment around, you drag and drop it, but you have no real feedback that you've actually accomplished what you want, except maybe the item will disappear. But it's not like today, if you clicked on something and dragged it around, it would stick to your mouse and you'd see that you're doing it. Mm-hmm. But in this, it doesn't do that. And it's kind of the same deal with combat, where you just find out, like, nope, you can't do that. It's not, it doesn't give you much information about.
I was about to make an argument that XCOM was out, but XCOM came out 2 years later, so.
Yeah.
But another Ultima 7 came out, so. And Ultima 7 was light years ahead. I mean, Ultima 7 is obviously on another tier from most things, but I feel like we'd gotten halfway there. Like, mm-hmm. Something. Yeah, no, but like combat for me, my big complaint with combat was throwing potions. It takes a long time. You're not sure where it's going to explode. Mm-hmm. There's a good chance you're taking out your own guys with it. It just, I don't know. I feel like combat couldn't be more interesting because of the interface. Like, it could be more interesting because there were things you could do, but because of the interface and the way it worked, I just very rarely had an opportunity to make it more interesting with alchemy or prayers or anything like that. That said, yeah. I had a problem with prayers for a long time. You were way ahead of me on that.
Yeah, I got pretty devout pretty early in this thing. And those two systems, the kind of magic, quote unquote magic, because mm-hmm. it's realistic, I didn't like either of them. I really hated the alchemy system for a couple of reasons. The main reason I hated it was that it's really hard to find ingredients, and you start with very little. And so one of the neat things that this does is kind of starts you in a random town.
Yeah.
But the thing is that every town has different not every town, but there are different resources in different towns. So you might start with one potion, and this is what happened to me. Start with one potion that you cannot get the ingredients for in the town you're in. And because outside combat is dramatically harder, you're kind of stuck there for a long time, unable to do anything with your alchemy guy.
Yeah.
And that's a total bummer.
To build an alchemy guy and not be able to use them.
For like a year of the game, basically. Right. Until you can move around to different towns.
Yeah, there needed to be a starting alchemy potion. Something that everybody could make, and
they give you a potion, but you
I
need
know.
like I think I needed, it wasn't gum, it was something else. I don't remember.
Yeah.
But there was one ingredient I just couldn't find.
They all require like 5 or 6, and yeah, there's like 1 or 2 ingredients that aren't in your town.
Yeah, and there's a bunch of places you can buy those alchemy ingredients too, which is also kind of annoying.
Mm-hmm.
Because like I don't want to have to spend my time navigating through this menu to get to, the foreign markets, and then the pharmacist, and then the alchemy
guy who may or may not get mad at you and not sell you anything today.
Right. Those alchemy guys are assholes, by the way.
They really are. It's kind of funny.
Yeah. Yeah, I kind of like that.
Yeah, I was going to say, on one hand, it bit my ass a couple times. On the other hand, when it worked, I felt good. I mean, it's a roulette thing, because I've literally had him like be buddy-buddy with me and then turn on me in a heartbeat, reloaded a saved game, and he just immediately turns on me. So it's roulette, but I don't know. It's fun.
So I hated the alchemy system because I couldn't do anything with it. I just kept buying up ingredients with hopes that someday I would get a potion that uses them.
Mm-hmm.
And then I finally, like the second city I went to did have an alchemist lane, and they immediately told me to fuck off and wouldn't talk to me. And I like squandered whatever good graces I had with them. But I suspect it's like most things in this game where once you're famous in the town, you get more options. And
Oh
like
no,
the
from
priest
the
will
alchemy
heal
guy?
you.
No, so like you can go, he'll be pissed at you, come back in a couple days, he'll be fine. I've had the doctor tell me I don't take apprentices and try another city, and a couple days later come back and they're like, well, actually,
Yeah.
I could use one. And
So you're saying it's more random and not related to your fame in the city?
100% the alchemy guys are random and not related to your fame in the city. There might
That's annoying.
That said, would fame make a difference? Maybe. But I know that starting out with no fame, I could get the alchemy guy to love me, and then the next time
That
I get
is
the
true.
guy to hate me.
That is true. I was just wondering if it improved your odds the more fame you had that he would not hate you. But anyway, that's disappointing though when you finally ground your way out of your first shitty town and you finally find an alchemist lane and then they're assholes and you're back to just waiting around.
I wish there was a. This is one of those things where I wish there was like just one more layer of something for alchemy. Going out and finding it in the woods.
That would be great.
Going to a place in the woods, clicking a button, going search for herbs. Search for this, search for that. That would have been really cool. We started on combat. We got off on this. Let's go back to dungeons unless you have more to say about combat.
I was going to briefly talk about the saint system, which is the other kind of magic system. Yeah. We're all over the place on this, but that's fine. The saint system is intricate and also annoying in a similar kind of way. So I took extensive notes on how this works. So you learn about the saint from the library in the church. Then you have to have enough virtue where you can pray at all to the saint. And it doesn't tell you that in the game. It just looks like you have 0% chance to have your prayer heard.
Right.
Which is not great. That's really annoying to me.
And the virtue you need is not a small amount. That was my complaint. Like some of the first ones you have, like I'm sitting down there with like 20, 25 virtue. Like you need 70 virtue. What?
Yeah, it's a lot. So what you have to really do is go to your manual and look who has the low virtue floor in early game, which is okay. Like that's fine, but they don't really do that much for you. And then so once you have enough virtue that you can even attempt to pray to the saint, then you have to spend your divine favor to increase the odds that it's heard. And then maybe it'll be heard. And then maybe the benefit will be something useful to you in that moment. But really, early game, probably not. And this is because they're trying to make it more realistic.
Yeah.
And they're trying to build a magic system that doesn't use magic. And I didn't like it because it seemed way too mathy and annoying.
See, I actually wish, I liked it. I did. I feel like it put it too far out of reach for people to start with. I feel like there should have been something, like a couple generic prayers that every priest gets. Like you can spend divine favor to just please make this go better and everybody gets a +1. You know, something like that. Just +1 to hit for this battle. Something really low, but makes your guy feel like he's doing something.
Yeah, there is that. Like there are times when your priest is more powerful because you have some divine favor, even though you didn't really pray to a specific saint. Like because they'll tell you that they'll say like at the end of combat, "Oh, you felt like the gods were smiling on you," and you're like, "Oh yeah, that's because I got to fucking mass on Vespers."
Is that what that is?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I believe, I'm not 100% sure.
I was going to say, have you looked that up or is that just a hunch? Because I took that as you got experience for your divine thing from killing these ruffians.
No, because I've noticed that my priest sucks far less on those fights. So that's the other evidence I have. Okay. But even then, it's not. You still don't feel like your priest is doing it. You feel
Let me just stop for a second. Someone out there is about to yell at us because we got it wrong. I want to make sure they hear me say this right now. We know we don't know.
Right.
We're guessing because we don't look this up. We don't go and play with a clue book or a walkthrough or anything like that because we want the experience of playing the game.
And honestly, I'm sure it's in the manual, just like that time chart is in the manual. Mm-hmm. But I don't want to have to hunt through a 100-page manual every time I have a minor question. And I don't really need to know. I just know that I want to go to mass and I want to go to confession. And the game does a good job saying, well, you knew Latin, so you got extra out of this mass, mm-hmm. which is cool because then you know that your skills matter.
Yeah.
But anyway, so I think there is that element, but I don't mean to digress. You were making a point that was still valuable.
Let's go to the point about the Latin thing. This is one of the reasons we're bringing this up. The game does, in some places, give you hints and give you points and tell you this mattered, this did something. In other cases, it's so blind and obfuscated that it feels sort of back and forth. Like in some cases, it's being really friendly, and in other cases, it's just there's nothing there. So
true.
What was I making a point of that I have forgotten?
I'm sorry. You were just talking about how to make the priest more useful by giving him some low level,
like
generic.
Right, because the thing you're talking about was you come to the end of it and it's like, oh, you felt the God smiling on you. Okay, but I did nothing. There should be an active thing the player does to trigger that behavior
in combat.
In combat, like
right.
A quick prayer, take a moment away where they've got to sit there for a couple rounds and pray and then attack. Something where you're like, I furthered my devout belief rather than just God smiled. The dice rolled in your favor. May the odds forever be in your favor.
Yeah, I totally agree.
Games are all about me acting and
right.
That isn't. But back to my original thing. I like the let's hunt all over for saints. Like who knows where they're, and they're randomized every time you start a new world. They're not going to be in the same cities. They're not going to be in the same places. And some of them you're going to find, like every so often you'll find a small chapel, like out in the wilderness. And if you talk to that guy and give him some money and sit down with him, sometimes he just gives you some rumors. Sometimes he tells you about a saint.
Right.
Because a couple times I've been like, here, have a saint. I'm like, well, yes, thank you. I can't use him.
Exactly, yeah. And I think it would be cool to like have played this for months and months and know what saints you really want. And then to start a new game and be like, oh, I got to find like Saint Ilyota or whatever. I think that would be a fun experience to have the ones that you can use and you like.
And that's my thing too. You're like, I don't want to go to the manual every time I have a question. I think if you intended to play this, if we said we're going to play this for a year, you probably would dick around with it for 3-4 months, get fed up, look it up, and then know the answer from then on. But you wouldn't have to sit down and try and cram through a manual so that we can be done on June 1st.
Right.
So that we can like start our next game because tick tick.
Right.
And I know I bring that up like every time, but I really want the people who are watching this and hearing our experience with it to filter through that lens. Because if you're thinking we're going to have the same experience as you, we're absolutely not.
Right. Right. Even the game that we're playing for years, Deathlord, we play differently than you would play. So it's just different, but I think it's valuable because we can tell you what the game is like what the systems are like, what the experience of learning it is like.
Yeah,
which I think is valuable.
Well, and I think most people today, if they sat down to play a game, would expect to get done in a month or two, and you need sometimes to be told, not this one. You are robbing yourself if you do that. And some people will think, okay, I didn't get done in a couple weeks, I should go look stuff up. I wouldn't do that with this. If this is your first time through, don't. It's not really that hidden. It's just that far away. It's going to take a while to get there. Enjoy the ride, but know it's a long ride.
Right. It's a scale thing. The scale of the game is big.
So the time to get across it is big.
Right. Totally.
So, okay. Dungeons?
Yeah, dungeons. I'm done now. I'm sorry.
All right, that's okay. No, don't be sorry. This is why we're here. Dungeons. Dungeons are combat, but bigger.
With marching orders and party formations.
That said, I'm happy there's a party formation. That said, it doesn't always work. Because, like, when we play Knights of Legend, dungeons are like combat as well, but it doesn't have party formations. You still have to move everybody one at a time. And that's really annoying on a big map. But we do it with XCOM, you know.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's doable. It's just not my first choice. But anyway, in this case, dungeons are, you go into an area and it looks like a big battle map. And you walk around and combat will start when you run into an enemy and it pauses and you pick what you're going to do and you hit go. And
I liked it. I thought it suffered from some of the same issues the combat interface suffers from. But overall, it's good. Like when they're by a door, you can open the door. When they're by stairs, you can go up the stairs. It's really clear where you're going to go, what your party formation is going to look like when you get there.
Yeah.
It's a decent system.
It's a decent system, and it's one of those where you know how much I love mapping, but this is when you don't have to map.
You don't have to map this thing.
They're all small enough, and there's a fog of war, and you can scroll around when you're done and find stuff. The dungeons are infinitely more casual than some others you might experience.
Yeah.
There are some choose your own adventure things in certain dungeons where it's like, oh, you've hit this. Here's a story element. Read, pick what you want to do. Yeah. They're good, but their combat plus is
sort of
how
overall, I thought that part of it was successful. I liked it.
Yeah.
I think town would have been annoying to do in that format.
Town would have been annoying to do in that format. I do still wish there was some sort of graphical representation of town. I don't know what it would have been, but
yeah,
it would have allowed towns to feel different. Going back to what I said in the beginning, where you're reading your first list of things in town, you're reading your fifth list of things in town. In my notes I have, some people will say, well, the towns do feel different because there's different things in the list. That's like saying the store in an Ultima RPG feels different because one has magic bows and one just has bows. No, not really. It's the same.
Doesn't feel different.
Doesn't feel different. It's technically different, but it feels the same. It feels like store number 543. And who cares? And that's sort of the game is really back and forth for me. I see the potential. I see the fun. I see the things I like about it. And I see a lot of layers of just, you got to fight through to get to the kill a demon on an altar under a moonlit sky thing.
Right. What did you think of the Overland map? I think that's the only interface we've yet to pick apart.
Okay.
That's how I felt too.
It's okay.
It moves poorly. There's no way to scroll around like there is here.
The seasonal changes are fun.
No night and day. It really would have been way better with some night and day. There's an icon in the corner that tells you, but I mean, who cares?
Who cares? Seasonal changes are cool. Night and day. I would have liked to be able to move from like the map we're looking at here, like click somewhere and have you just start walking there. Like, maybe not fast travel, but do start walking there.
Pathfinding or something?
Yeah, some pathfinding. I hate to say it. The game would have benefited from fast travel.
Yeah.
You're
Yeah.
not going to get the full experience of the game without wandering around, but sometimes I got shit to do. I want
Right.
to go here, do some things, and making me as the player have to wander through all this again. Like, do fast travel, do a roll to see if you get stopped by bandits and or spiders or the Neanderthal monkey men or
Right.
any of the other things that stop you out in the wilderness.
The boars.
The boars, the bears, the alchemists. There's plenty of things that stop you.
Yeah.
Roll to see if one of them does. Roll to see if you run into a caravan. That was always fun for me.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I like
Go on.
this inn system. I both loved and hated.
Mm-hmm.
For one, it should never dump you to just relax, ever.
Yeah.
That should not be the default action, is to do nothing.
Mm-hmm.
And it's easy to miss and have someone just end up doing nothing when they could be learning or healing especially, or working. Like, it should default to work. Earn a little money. That's what it should default to.
Yeah. Yeah, I would say that too. Or some way to assign what the default is for somebody. Like, you're going to be praying, you're going to be this, you're going to be that.
Yeah, but I did like that what you do in town, like as far as the trainers go, if you go to the church and get someone to train you in healing, they show up here at the inn, and that's cool because it kind of ties together what you're doing out in the city with what you're doing at the inn. So I like that.
I want to completely segue for a second to anyone who's played Pathfinder Kingmaker, because I would have liked to see something like that with like the outside camping and stuff, where you can assign people to do watches, and there's some stuff you could do here, but just the way Pathfinder Kingmaker does it, I think, was superior and should be called out. But like when you camped in the woods, there was like, do you watch out for stuff? Do you have somebody, resting or healing or things like hunting? And I think as part of the overland map system, we should point out no food.
Yeah, no food. Good call, Darklands.
Good call.
As realistic as it is, you don't have to worry about food, which is great.
No food.
Because it did not need a piddly little gotcha. Like, there's enough depth here that you do not need that.
Mm-hmm. I have instructions on my notes. We've talked about instructions. It's thick. It's dense. It's got a bibliography to talk about its historical things. If that's something that interests you, man, this is your game. Like,
yeah.
This is so good at that. If it's not, this is not your game.
Right. Yeah, the manual's good. Like, although it's long, you can find things in it. There's some nice tables for the things that you want to reference quickly. It's a good manual, as much shit as I gave it for being so long.
Well, and I think part of why you gave it shit is it's too long for a PDF. That's one of the things. There's a set amount of manual that fits in a PDF that feels usable. And then there's a length where, no, I just want to pick up a book and flip.
Yeah.
Like, because I can open to the middle and then go flip, 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 flip. Okay, I'm to Saints and go much faster than trying to find it, even with a Control F.
Right. You still have to scroll around.
Still got to scroll around. You're going to hit like Saint next. I passed it. Son of a.
Yep, totally.
So yeah, there's something nice about that, but at the same time, it's not bad. The map's good. I like the map. You're going to need the map to find where towns are. I do like when it assigns you a quest or something. Like, I'm one of those people, I like that there's no journal.
Yeah, I like that too.
And they don't put it on your map. There's no map marker. It's like, it's west of here and southeast of here, so kind of triangulate and find something in the area, and that's your guy. Like,
yep.
So
and I also like that they're like, oh, it's southwest of here and northeast of here, and then you just kind of have to find it, and you can see it on the things on the map. But I've always liked when games did that. When when the early what's like the Skyrim series, Elder Scrolls
Daggerfall.
games were really good about that.
Yeah.
And actually, Elder Scrolls listed this as an influence. I noticed when I was reading up on it, which is cool. But yeah, I enjoyed that kind of vague suggestion about where things are, and you just kind of write it down and then navigate to it.
Yeah. So yeah, I really like that. I mean, there's a lot I really like about the game. I feel like this is going back to our original stuff where we liked the game, so we ditch on it the whole time.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah, we do this often.
But yeah, there's a lot of things I would do differently if given the chance to make this game today. And that's always the hindsight is 2020, and we have more power to do stuff today, and there's just new mechanics to things. But for the time, this was cool. This was really, there wasn't a lot like it.
Yeah.
Graphically, I felt it could use some work. I feel like they're probably either I never got to the more dialogue or it needs more dialogue. One of the two.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Overall, I think it's a great experience and worth grinding through. And like I'm to the point now where if I were a real person, I would set it aside for a couple weeks, and then maybe I would come back to it.
Yep.
But instead we're going to be moving on to something else, which we should probably talk about because we've been talking about this thing for an hour and 20 minutes.
Highs and lows. I need your highs and lows.
The peak and the pit?
Nope, your highs and lows.
The peak for me was an early game when I figured out the combat system. I got my priest. You lost me. My beautiful face.
There you go.
My poor priest is just like getting beat up, and I finally figured out that you have to flee for him to run and not walk. And I had him run, and I had my roguish guy come around the corner, and he shot an arrow, and he killed the guy that was chasing my guy. And I was like, this is fun. Like, I figured out combat. That was a great experience. I had a plan. I did it. It worked. Fantastic. And, like, I got the power up and won the game, and I was happy, The pit, I think, was after I beat the first robber knight, which I had a lot of trouble with. I got all that loot, and I felt like, this just opened up huge because I've never had equipment this good. I've never had this much money. I'm doing it. And so I got the next quest to find like the silver trumpet or whatever it is. And so I walked to the next town, and no one would tell me anything. And I went right back to fighting the bandits at night, storming around the town. And it didn't last long because you gain local fame so quickly, and by your second city you know what to do. But it was still just like I felt like this was just gonna be a thing, and like it was gonna be different now, and it wasn't, and that was like disheartening to me. It made me not want to play it. That was a bummer.
Yeah. Okay, my pinnacle to the pit.
Your peak?
No, pinnacle to the pit. We're doing Ghost.
Your Kardashian
No, I'm doing
style
Ghost.
peak?
Ghost. Pinnacle.
Nice.
Yes. I have two. One I've already talked about, finding the pagan cult. That was really awesome. Another one was a third actually, the first Baron Knight. Like you said, taking that guy out the first time, like for me, it was this, like my first encounter with him, I set up camp outside because I'm like, I can't storm a whole tower. I'm not that good. So I set up camp outside and just beat guys down as they came and went like, I've done this like 3 times. Does he even have anybody left in there? So I called him out, and he walks out with one other guy. I'm like, yeah, I called that right. He has done. He had nobody left. So the next tower I went to, I thought, oh, maybe he always just comes out with 2. And I called him out, and everybody came out. I'm like, nope, that is not how that works. But no, the first one, beating the first Robber Knight was huge. You will occasionally get quests to find like the Helm of Siegfried. And like I finally went and did it. Like normally it's like it's way the hell across the country. I'm not going to do that. And I'm like, I need to see if this unlocks something. Let's go do it. And it was this weird little choose your own adventure with a dwarf guy, and there were lots of rules based on what you knew, and like I ended up getting it, but only after taking a ton of damage. Yeah. And was so far away from everywhere and everything, and had to get back on a schedule, and just limped my ass home, and ended up getting attacked by like really powerful shit on the way. And making it back and giving the Helm of Siegfried was huge to me. Like I completed that quest. So Lowe's, going into the next city and having someone ask me if I can go find the Helm of Siegfried, which is over on this side of the country.
Oh. Great.
No, what? That guy's, first off, I know that guy's got it because I just got it for him. Second off,
yeah.
But I have a feeling it's a holy ark type thing. Like everybody's got the Ark of the Covenant. Everybody has that piece of the true cross. It's just
right. So I like that you had Twin Peaks.
I'll give it to you.
All right.
I never watched Twin Peaks.
Really? I
find that hard to believe, actually, knowing what I know about Twin Peaks. But I never watched it.
Wow. Yeah, I have mixed feelings about it because I felt like the last, I think it's the second season. I think there were only 2.
Okay.
It kind of turned into a mess with the owls and aliens and stuff, and I don't know about that. Like I didn't.
Well, now I want to watch it. There's a mess with owls and aliens. Awesome. Holy shit, that sounds great.
The first season was crap, but the second season had
owls and aliens and shit. All right. But my real low was just this realization after getting past the first Baron and getting some of the stuff done and realizing I'm still not in the plot.
Right.
Like the plot is still far off for me, and I'm not going to get it done in 2 months. And just that realization just had me just like, I may not even see the plot by the time we get to record.
Yeah. Yeah, I've watched movies where I love the movie so much that I don't want it to end. And I think maybe your pit there could be a peak for someone else who doesn't want Darklands to end.
Mm-hmm.
But with a deadline and everything.
That's the problem. It goes back to how we do this and why we do this. Create certain pressures. Maybe at the end of the year we'll talk about this again, and I'll be like, you know what? I've been able to keep playing it, and I've enjoyed it, and I found myself once or twice a month going back and continuing, and I'm having a good time.
Yeah.
But that's not today. So
today.
I need to hang it up and move on to our next stuff. Let's talk about moving on to our next stuff, shall we?
Yeah. What's next?
Well, our short game
is
missing.
Oh, we're building tension. No, it's not missing. You didn't forget the art. We're building a tension. It's like beach whatever, right?
Yes.
Beach gunner, beach comber, beach clam digger.
Beach clam.
But I can dig more clams than you. No.
Beachhead.
Whoa, Beachhead. There it is.
Beachhead. Old schooly action game. Have you played it yet?
No.
Yeah, don't worry about it. It's not a long one.
Yep.
That's why it's our short game. So it'll be a quick conversation. It'll be a quick conversation, but it also might not. So
you just never know.
Now, actually, I'm gonna We know that. Now I'm building tension. We know that in a week we're going to do Deathlord this Thursday. We stream the Thursday after we record. So at the end of the month, if there's a 5th Thursday, we take that off. So you're going to get 2 recordings and 2 videos a month right now. That's our 2 and 2.
It's our promise.
It's our promise-ish. Who knows? It's 2020.
Right.
God,
the computers might revolt.
Deathlord. I do think we're in the home stretch.
Of 2020?
Well, no. I think we got 4 years of 2020 left at the rate it's going. Of Deathlord.
Yeah.
Deathlord.
Yeah, that's exciting.
I think we got one more word left to find. I want to do a little bit of grinding. Get people up to a little bit higher. And then we should be good to go. Excited. But yeah, that will happen in a month. Now, speaking of 2020, I almost didn't want to do our next game. And I talked to you about it a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's a game that's celebrating its 20th anniversary this month. Which means it's just crossing the line. It's a game I loved when it came out. And it involves playing the role of a government agent trying to maintain order in the country after a pandemic has wiped nearly the entire thing out. And that game is Deus Ex. And it feels a little on the nose for where we are.
Yep. But we're doing it.
Have you ever played Deus Ex? I don't think you have.
I have played it a very little bit. I think I own it. I think I installed a bunch of update mods for it, maybe.
Okay.
But I haven't been deep into it.
Oh my god, I loved every moment of this game. Cyberpunky X-Files, near future conspiracy theory stuff. It was so good. It was so very, very good. You really don't. If you're wondering, like, I wonder if Deus Ex will be good. It's good. Like, we're gonna talk about beyond that. We're gonna talk about other elements of it. But it's definitely one for us to take a look at. So,
yeah, definitely looking forward to that. I've never heard anyone say bad things about Deus Ex.
Not the first one. Some of the other ones, but not the first one. So, all right. Anything else you want to add before we go? Because I think it's time.
Yeah, I think we're done here. I think I'm done.
Okay. All right. Then we'll talk to everybody next time. Bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Big thank you to all of you watching, sharing, liking, subscribing, suggesting games, commenting on our videos, or supporting us on Patreon. We appreciate all of your support and look forward to sharing many more videos with you. Thank you again.